At night when the parents leave their children to sleep, monsters come out of the wardrobes and scare their children. Actually, the monsters do not want to hurt the children, they only want them to scream. What do monsters gain from this? How do they come through the lockers? Are those monsters really scary? And how is all of that going to change? It starts with a monster entering a kid's room through the wardrobe. He sneaks in and, at the right moment, scares the kid. But when the kid screams loudly, the monster gets scared, causing the monster to scream as well. The monster stumbles and falls into toys, which hurt him. He screams in pain and swings. It turns out that it is just a simulation to teach monsters how to scare kids, and the monster failed because he left the wardrobe door open. The trainer asks the monster why it's wrong to leave the door open, but he gives a wrong answer. Mr. Henry Waternoose, the head of Monsters Incorporated, shows up and explains that leaving a door open can cause a child to be let in. Children are toxic and deadly to monsters, a touch can eliminate them. The monster's mission is to collect the children's screams, which are used as power, and the whole city depends on them. So they should be responsible, tough, and scary, exactly like James Sullivan, the best scarer in the factory. Meanwhile, James Sullivan is sleeping in his bed, and Mike wakes him up at 6 in the morning using an air horn. Every day, James trains hard. He does push-ups, exercises, and lifts weights. A commercial on the TV interrupts their training. It is a commercial for Monsters Incorporated, where James and Mike work. They set to watch it, and Mike watches James on TV and gets excited. When Mike shows up on TV for a couple of seconds, he explodes with happiness. Mike and James leave the house to go to work. James refuses to ride in the car to work. He wants to help with the power shortage that is happening in the city, but Mike wants to go by car. James insists on walking to work and grabs Mike by force. James is popular and loved in the city. They enter the company, and everyone welcomes him. On the wall, there are pictures of James hanging under the label of Scarer of the Month. Mike stops by the receptionist, Celia, and congratulates her on her birthday. Mike got a reservation in a fancy and popular restaurant for their date on her birthday, and Celia is surprised and extremely happy, especially since the restaurant is full but Mike got a reservation. In the locker room, Mike and James are getting ready for work. Mike expresses his love for Celia and thanks James for helping him get the reservation. While Mike is talking to James, the locker closes. Mike opens it, but it closes again. It turns out that Randall, James' competitor, wants to scare Mike. Randall annoys Mike, but James stops him. Mike heads to the work area and stops by Roz to grab the door's card keys. She wonders about the paperwork that he did not deliver. Mike beats around the bush, but Roz threatens him to deliver the paperwork. Mike sets up the energy cylinder, pulls the card key from the file, swipes it, and the doors come, lining up one by one. The whole work area closes, and James, Randall, and the other scarers enter to start work. They all heat up, and James shows good sportsmanship to Randall, but Randall, in return, acts arrogantly. Everyone is ready, and they start. James scores high points as he already has the highest score, and Randall scores a few points. He is angry and orders another door. They work hard throughout the day to produce energy. Henry Waternoose comes to the work area while they are working to check the work. Meanwhile, one of the monsters comes out of a door, shaking and crying. The kid was about to touch him, and his assistant asks to get rid of the door. Workers come and dispose of the door by shattering it with a machine. Randall exits a door, his assistant gets his attention to the scare totals board, and Randall's scare total ascends. He gets the highest scare total, and everyone is cheering for him. After seconds, the scare total board updates again, and James goes back to the fore. Everyone leaves Randall and heads to cheer James. After James' co-workers congratulate him, Mr. Waternoose congratulates James as well. A monster exits the door with a sock stuck to his back. The monsters immediately announce an emergency, the windows open, and a CDA, Child Detection Agency, raids the place. They hold the monster on the ground, smoothly take the sock off, and then blow it up. The CDA agents shave the monster's fur. Meanwhile, Mr. Waternoose is complaining to James about how the company is about to close down. James offers help, so Mr. Waternoose asks him to train some new scarers. James happily accepts. At the end of the day, the monsters finish their work and return all the doors. Mike and James change their clothes and head out. Mike is excited about his date with Celia, but Roz stops him and asks about the paperwork. Mike had filed the paperwork but forgot to deliver it. He is short on time as he needs to be at the restaurant in 5 minutes. Just as Celia shows up, James steps in to help his friend by volunteering to deliver the paperwork himself. Mike tells James where the paperwork is and where each file should go. James finds the files, but he notices one door left open. Although there is no one around, the red light indicates that it is functioning. He opens the door and checks inside to see if any monster is there, but he finds no one. James hears some noise, looks behind him, and finds a little girl playing with his tail. He jumps back in fear, picks up a pair of tongs, and carries her using them. James puts her back in her room, but he notices that she is standing behind him. He puts her in her bed and tries to leave, but he stumbles on her toys. He manages to get out of the room, but he sees someone coming and runs away. It turns out to be Randall, so James goes to the toilet, throws the toys in the toilet and tries to flush it, but the toilet clogs. He picks up the toys and runs to the locker room. James crushes the toys in a locker, but the little girl is hanging on his back. He puts her in a bag and runs back to return her, but he finds that the door is closed, and Randall is coming out. James hides behind the door but cannot return the girl. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Mike and Celia are having dinner when James shows up and interrupts their date. James tells Mike about the girl and points to the bag where she is. Mike cannot see the bag, and the girl runs around with it on her head. The sight of the girl scares everyone, and they all rush out of the restaurant. A monster calls the CDA, so Mike picks up a food box and puts the girl inside, and James closes the box. They forget the bag the girl was in, and the CDA raids the restaurant. Mike and James escape, but Celia gets caught by the CDA. Mike wants to save her, but James stops him, and they keep running while the CDA blocks the whole area. The whole city is terrified. The press is covering the accident. The witnesses overpower the kid. Meanwhile, James and Mike are in their house, trying to control the situation. They are trying to stay away from her, as they believe she is toxic and can eliminate them by any physical contact. The child ruins the apartment. James wants to keep her away from him, so he gives her Mike's toy. Mike takes the toy from her. She cries loudly, and the electricity flashes due to her cry. James tries hard to silence her, so the CDA does not detect them. James plays with her, and she stops crying. She touches James, which freaks him out. The girl cries again. Mike jumps to get his toy. He crumbles, rolls over, falls into the trash can, and a bunch of books falls in his mouth. The girl laughs loudly, the electricity flashes again, and the electricity cuts off the whole block. The kid is drawing on the lights of candles. James is hiding behind the sofa, and Mike is planning how they can get rid of the girl. But no plan can work. Meanwhile, the girl draws a portrait of her and James holding her hand. She is getting tired and yawning. James lures the girl to his room with cereal. He makes an area for her in the corner of the room, but she stays in his bed. He declines, but he leaves her on the bed and heads to sleep on the couch outside. The girl calls him and points to the closed door. She is afraid. The girl shows him a drawing of Randall. Randall is her scarer. James opens the door to show her that it's empty. Although the girl is still scared, James blocks the door and sits in front of it. She feels safe and eventually falls asleep. James believes she is not dangerous, but Mike believes the opposite. James plans to take her back to her room through her door. So he makes a disguise out of the couch texture. The next day, Mike, James, and the child head to the factory. Once they enter the company, they find the factory besieged by the CDA. They are investigating the girl. The CDA has the Monsters Incorporated bag that was left in the restaurant. The girl goes to play with Mr. Waternoose. James and Mike rush to stop her. James picks her up, while Mr. Waternoose reminds him to pass by to teach the new scarers. They hide in the men's room. Mike goes to bring the girl's door key card. The girl wants to enter the toilet. James helps her, and takes her to the toilet while waiting outside. When she finishes, he looks in, but the toilet is empty. The girl shows up behind him. She runs and hides. They play hide and seek. The girl says, "Boo," when she shows up. Here, James names her Boo. Meanwhile, Mike meets Roz and tries to take the key card Randall used. Roz blames him for not handing over the paperwork. She declines to give him the key card, and closes the window over his fingers. Mike goes back to James and Boo. Boo comes crying to James. They hear Randall coming. They hide in one of the toilets. Randall talks with his assistant about the escaped girl. Randall stops him and checks the toilets before he reaches the toilet they are hiding in. Luckily, he stops. Randall and his assistant talk about a machine, and then they leave. James and Mike take the girl and head to the factory. Mike lies to James about the key card, and he steals a random card. He orders the door, but James figures out that this is not her door. Her door was white and had roses drawn on it, while this door is brown and old. James refuses to hand her over, and Mike argues loudly with James. They lose Boo. Mike becomes happy that she is lost and does not want to look for her, but James refuses and starts looking for her. They meet Randall when they are leaving. He asks them about Boo, but Mike misleads him. James notices Boo and goes after her. Celia runs across from Mike and upbraids him for leaving her in the restaurant. Randall hears the talk and notices Mike's appearance in the newspaper with Boo. Mike escapes and is hiding. Suddenly, Randall appears behind him, holds him to the wall, and interrogates him. Randall makes a deal with Mike. He will put her door in the station by launch break, and they should return Boo. James is going after Boo, but two CDA agents stop him before he reaches her, and they ask for his autograph. When James finishes, he goes after Boo, but the workers have dumped the trash in the tunnel. However, Boo leaves the trash before they throw it. James rushes to the basement, where the trash is being recycled. He observes the trash being mashed, compressed, and pressed into cubes. Sadly, he picks a trash cube thinking it's Boo. Mike is looking for James and finds him. They both become sad about her passing, but they hear her voice, and when they look, they find her playing with other child monsters. James happily hugs Boo and asks her not to do that again. A child monster bites Mike, he screams in pain, and Boo laughs. The electricity flashes and turns off. Mike and James go to the factory to put Boo back in her room. James feels suspicious, does not trust Randall, and refuses to return Boo. Mike enters the room to prove it is safe, but he gets kidnapped. James and Boo hide. Randall kidnaps Mike, puts him in a box, and leaves the factory. James and Boo go after him to free Mike. They reach a wall. James is looking around, but Boo opens a secret door. They enter and hear Randall and his assistant. Randall opens the box to find Mike inside. He chains Mike to a chair and questions him about Boo's place. It appears that Randall is not doing this because of the scare total, and he reveals a machine called a scream extractor. He turns the machine on, and it is about to reach Mike, but out of nowhere, it stops. Randall's assistant checks the machine, and Randall notices the cables moving. He goes after the cables to find that the power is cut off. Randall plugs the cables back in, but when he goes back to the machine, he finds his assistant attached to the machine instead of Mike. James, Mike, and Boo are running out of the company. They reach the door, but James goes back to face Mr. Waternoose for everything. Mr. Waternoose is in the simulation room with the new scarers. James tries hard to explain to Mr. Waternoose, who asks him to show the new scarers how to scare a kid. James is obligated, so he roars frighteningly, not noticing that Boo is watching. Boo gets scared and stays away from James. He approaches her, but she escapes. Meanwhile, Mike explains everything to Mr. Waternoose, who understands it all, and they all head to a door station. Mr. Waternoose orders a door, and a big metal door shows up. Suddenly, Randall appears and opens the door, and Mr. Waternoose pushes Mike and James in. Mr. Waternoose betrays them too. James and Mike find themselves in a very cold and snowy place. Mike is angry and blames James for everything, attacking him. They both fall and roll over the snow while fighting. A huge monster shows up and welcomes them to the Himalayas. In the snowman's cave, Mike warms himself while James worries for Boo and thinks about how he can help her. The snowman mentions a village down the mountain, and James decides to head there and use a kid door to go back and save Boo. The way to the village is a 3-day hike, but James uses skating tools to skate down the mountain. Mike loses his temper, throws snow on James, and refuses to join him on his trip. Sadly, James has nothing to do but go alone. James skates fast using a skater until a big rock appears, and he crashes into it, falling down the snow. He hears a girl scream and looks up to see the village. He rushes in and enters the factory through a door. Randall ties Boo to the chair, and Mr. Waternoose scolds Randall for the loss of James. Randall answers that they do not need scarers anymore and turns on the scream extractor, which elicits the scream of the children. Meanwhile, James breaks the secret door of the wall. Randall attacks James, but James cannot fight back. Randall punches him, and Boo drops off his hand. A snowball hits James, and Mike is back, blaming James without noticing that he is getting beaten. Randall hits James and strangles him. James is about to pass away, and Mike is angry that James is not paying attention, so he throws a snowball at James. The snowball hits Randall, revealing his location, and James takes advantage by hitting Randall in the face and freeing himself. That is only when Mike understands what is happening. They all escape, and while they are running, Celia appears and jumps, hanging on to Mike. She threatens to break up with him unless he tells her what is going on. Mike tells her honestly everything, but she does not believe him. However, Boo shows up and proves his words, which scares Celia, and she lets go. Now she believes Mike and decides to help when she sees Randall and his assistant running after them. James orders the door using the card key, and Randall is about to reach them, but Celia announces in the microphone that Randall broke the scare record. This makes all the monsters gather around Randall and abstract him, allowing James to act fast and stop the doors from coming. He hangs up on the lifter to make his way to the door, and Randall climbs up and follows them. They reach the door's warehouse where there are thousands of doors, and they cling to a door while the doors are sliding quickly. They reach a dead end, and Mike makes Boo laugh, which activates the doors. They jump into a door and use the doors to move between the warehouse to reach Boo's door. Meanwhile, Randall is still chasing them. They think they lost him, but he shows up, snatches Boo, and cuts the door, causing them to fall. However, they make their way back and go after Randall. He notices them and enters a room, and James follows him through the door. Once he enters, Randall pushes him, and James falls and hangs onto the door to avoid falling. Randall attacks him, but Boo encourages and attacks Randall from the back. James climbs in and catches Randall. Mike opens a door, and James throws Randall in. Mike drops the door, and it shatters. They climb to Boo's door to return her, but the power is out. They try to make Boo laugh, but they cannot. Suddenly, the door moves. Mr. Waternoose orders the door and calls the CDA to catch James and Mike. The door lands, and Mike comes out from behind the door carrying Boo. He takes a sucker out of his mouth, throws it on them, and then runs. The agents run after him. James comes from behind the door with Boo. He steals the door and escapes, but Mr. Waternoose notices him and goes after him. James hides in a room and locks the door. He puts a door in a station, and Mr. Waternoose breaks into the room. James opens the door and goes in. Mr. Waternoose is angry and wants to save his company. He confesses his crime, hits James, and makes his way to the bed. He pulls the kid to find out that it's a toy. They have been in the simulation chamber. The CDA agents arrest Mr. Waternoose. A CDA agent wants to meet James and Mike. She comes to find out that the CDA agent is Roz. She has been undercover for 2 years to arrest Mr. Waternoose. She allows them to return Boo, but she is going to shred the door. James and Mike say goodbye to Boo, knowing they are not going to see her again. James puts her in her bed, hugs her, and leaves with tears in his eyes. They shred the door, and James is not going to see Boo again. James keeps a piece of wood from the door. The factory is going to close, which will cause the loss of hundreds of jobs. An idea comes to James' mind. They turn the company's work strategy from scaring kids and using their screams to using children's laughter, as it is 10 times more powerful. Mike works as a comedian in the factory, and James becomes the new director of the factory. He still misses Boo, and Mike takes him to a room. Mike has assembled the door, but there is one last piece of wood that James has. He puts it on, and the light turns red. He opens the door, calls Boo, and Boo answers his call.